and welcome to another episode of The People's Law. I'm your host, Sarah Mukaseni. Now, The People's Law is more than just a TV show. It is where the law meets the people. And on this show, you get to learn and understand more about the Zambian law and how it relates with you. From topics such as defilement, theft, and everything relating to the law, this is the place for you to be. Now, join us as we dive into it and learn more today. Today we're discussing immigration law. What is immigration law? What does it mean to be a Zambian citizen? And today we're joined by a representative from the Law Association of Zambia, Counsel Greenwell Liamte. Welcome to the program, Counsel.
Thanks very much, Sarah. It's indeed a privilege to be here to discuss this very important issue of immigration, citizenship, and refugee law matters.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, since you're the first representative from the Law of Association of Zambia, and we will be having others on the show, maybe you could just help the public understand what the mandate is for the Law Association of Zambia.
Well, the Law Association of Zambia has a very serious mandate, and mainly it's there to protect the interest of its members by ensuring that we all comply to the legal provisions of this country and uphold the provisions of the law by ensuring that all citizens of this country are safeguarded, protected, and ensure that there's serious compliance in terms of the legal provisions of this country. And we do a number of activities which are mandated by the Law Association of Zambia Act, which is there to provide for the guidance on how members should conduct themselves.
Mm-hmm. So, Counsel, what does it mean to be a Zambian citizen, and how is that status determined legally according to the law?
Thanks very much. First of all, the citizenship or the citizenship law is first of all starts from the Constitutional Republic of Zambia, and very specific. I think that should be somewhere around Part 2 of the Zambian Constitution, provide what it means, what the meaning of the citizenship. Basically, citizenship is a simple issue. It is that you belong to that country or to that state. You are a bona fide person from that country. And therefore, when it comes to issues of citizenship of Zambia, is provided for in both the Constitution and the Citizenship Act. There are so many ways in which one can become a citizen of Zambia. One, you can become a citizen of Zambia by birth. You can become a citizen of Zambia by naturalization. You can also become a citizen of Zambia by descent, and sometimes even by what is called registration. Now, these are different ways in which you can become a citizen of this country. Of course, by birth, as it states, is that you must be a bona fide being born in Zambia. But I want to explain slightly a bit that not being born in Zambia automatically makes you become a Zambian. No.
Okay.
But you must go further that at the time of your birth, at least one of the parents must be a Zambian. And you may not necessarily be born in Zambia. You can even be born outside the country
and still become a
citizen of Zambia.
Okay.
What is important there is that at least at the time of your birth, one of your parents must be a citizen. Okay. So in short, the Zambian citizenship is based in law what we call the jus sanguinis. Simply means by blood. Okay. You become a Zambian citizenship by virtue of your blood. As opposed to other countries which are governed by a principle called jus soli, meaning that you can become a citizen of a country by being born in a place.
Okay.
So Zambia based citizenship based on a principle called jus sanguinis, become a Zambian citizenship by blood. Others can become citizens of this country by registration, meaning that you need to meet some certain requirements of the law for you to register as a Zambian citizen. Now, I can go further also to note that in these issues of citizenship, immigration, and refugee, there are different types of status.
Yeah.
And if you are to categorize them, of course, the topmost status would be that is called a citizen of a country. And apart from that, you can actually be a migrant in a country, and they will be governed by immigration law. In some certain situation, you can be a refugee in a country, and you'll be governed by refugee laws. In some other situations, you can actually become a stateless person, meaning that you don't belong anywhere. You don't belong anywhere.
There are people like that.
Exactly. There are a number of people like that.
How does that happen? How do you become a stateless person?
Though it may be seen to be rare in this country, but it happens in the sense that there are different ways one can become a stateless person. One, you can become a stateless person, especially if you're born in a place what is called a disputed territory. This is a territory which is not recognized as a country or a state. I can give you a practical example. For example, if you're born in a place such as Palestine, you are not known whether you're Israelis or from Palestine. There's this dispute over this land. So we don't have any proper state. Or some rare situation, you can even find yourself a stateless person whereby you decide to renounce your original citizenship.
Yeah.
And as you are trying to attempt to get another citizenship, it fails.
It fails.
That other country fails to give you. So you no longer have the original citizen of that country, as well as you have given up. You try to get another one, they can't give you. So you become stateless. So there are quite a number of ways in which you can become stateless. Sometimes even being born possibly from parents of different nationalities. So you can either, the countries where your parents are coming from, they have refused to grant you that citizenship. So you find that this child becomes stateless. And we have quite a number of children in those lines. So statelessness does happen. So what you bear in mind is that at any given time in your lifetime, you belong to any of these status situations. One, you can either be a citizen of this country, you can either be a migrant in a country, you can either be a refugee in a country, or in worst case scenario, you can even become a stateless person in a situation, in a country.
So now, because like you've mentioned, being a Zambian citizen is by blood, is this what happens when, for example, somebody has been staying in Zambia for maybe even 10, 20 years and they still haven't attained citizenship? Is that one of the considerations that are put into place because their parents are not Zambian? Therefore, does it matter how long they stay in the country? And would that play a part in the considerations of whether to grant them citizenship or not?
Yes. When somebody comes into the country as a foreign nation, naturally that person will be governed by what is called the immigration law. So immigration law will grant him the special status to stay in the country. He could either be a visitor, he could be an investor, it could be a worker, expatriate, and so on. But for you to qualify to become a citizen of a country, that is if you have been a foreigner, there are some certain things which need to be fulfilled. One, you must be lawfully staying in Zambia on permanent residence for more than 10 years. And once you become a permanent, and that permanent resident will only be granted to you by the immigration department. And the permanent resident is not given automatically. You must meet some certain requirements. For example, if you came into Zambia as a foreign national working as an expatriate, you need to be on work permit for not less than 10 years for you to qualify as a permanent resident. Now, if you are coming into Zambia as an investor, you need to be in the country on a successful investment systems for more than 3 years. Then you can get what is called permanent resident or what is called a residence permit. But when you get that permit, you need to be on that permit for at least not less than 10 years for you to apply for citizenship by registration. So meaning that you can be in this country for a long period of time, but you are not a citizen of this country. So being in this country does not automatically make you to become a citizen. You must meet some certain requirements.
Okay. Well, you're still watching The People's Law, and today we're talking about citizenship law, and we are joined by the Law Association of Zambia. But for now, we'll take a short break, and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back, and you are still watching The People's Law. Today, we are discussing citizenship, immigration laws, and everything relating to you being a Zambian citizen or a foreign national looking to become a Zambian citizen. And today, we're joined by a representative from the Law Association of Zambia, and we get back right into it. We are having a very interesting conversation. Now, Council, you had mentioned something. What do you consider people who are born in no man's land?
Yes, interesting thing. And naturally, people are born in no man's land. First of all, no man's land is a land which does not belong to any of the states. Okay? Although it could be a very rare situation that somebody finds himself being born in no man's land. But if that happens, maybe those are the people who regard them as being stateless. But eventually, stateless is a very temporal status,
yes.
In the sense that it's just there as a transitional process.
It's in between processes.
It is expected to finally find himself in that one. But nevertheless, if you're born in no man's land, the question is, where are your parents? Where are your parents coming from? If the parents are coming from a certain country, automatically, as a person born, whatever place you are born, you still get the status of your parents. It's either that country will, you get it through the process called by blood, which as I earlier explained, which is called jus sanguinis.
Which what applies to us in
yes,
Zambia.
which applies to Zambia.
Yes.
Okay, wherever you are born, as long as at the time of your birth, your parents is a Zambian citizen, you automatically become a citizen. And in most cases, I just want to explain that most people normally find it difficult. They think by being born in this country, you can become a Zambian. As long as at the time of your birth, none of your parents was a citizen of this country, then you can never be a citizen of this country. It has to be at least one of your parents to become a citizen of this country at the time of birth. Then you become a Zambian citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So which arm of the government decides, has the final say on who is considered a citizen, a refugee, or as an immigrant?
Of course, there are different, the ministry which governs most of these issues related to citizenship, immigration, as well as refugee, is the Ministry of Home Affairs and Internal Security. But there are different departments which handles these matters. Matters to do with immigration are handled by the Immigration Department. Citizenship are handled by the Department of National Registration, Passport and Citizenship Office, whereas refugee matters are handled by the Commissioner for Refugees. So these are different departments which are all under the Ministry of Home Affairs and Internal Security. So these departments have different mandates and are governed by different statutory provisions. Under the immigration law, we have the Immigration and Deportation Act. Then you have got Citizenship Act. Then you also have the Refugees Act, which all governs issues related to these issues of citizenship, immigration, as well as refugee. But I think I want to make use this opportunity to try and explain a bit more details on how matters of refugees come about. When you deal with issues of refugees, a refugee is a person who comes to a country like Zambia, leaves this country and enters another country owing to what is called well-founded fear of being persecuted, and there are a number of grounds. It could be either based on race, tribal, wars, and many others. And as you're aware that Zambia, since time immemorial, has been hosting a huge number of refugees coming from different countries, neighbors, and many far countries. And once these people come, they are first considered as asylum seekers. Once they arrive in the country, they are regarded as asylum seekers. And when asylum seekers, you go through what is called refugee status determination, at which you are investigated, verified if indeed any of your claims for any of these situations I'm raising with what is called well-founded fear or being persecuted on those grounds. And once that thing is assessed and you're certain that you deserve that kind of status, then the Commissioner for Refugee will grant you that status as a refugee. And you remain on that status until whatever things you are scared of, whatever things you feared has come to an end. Then you can be subjected to either be repatriated back to your country of origin or being granted another status which can make you change from being a refugee status to whatever status you can qualify at that stage.
Okay. So what are the limitations of a refugee compared to a citizen? Are they also allowed to seek employment? Can they own property? What are their limitations if they're in the country under refugee status?
Good question. First of all, a refugee and a citizen are totally different people. The status of being a refugee is very temporal, and it has got so many limitations. First of all, if you're a refugee in a country, you cannot be allowed to work unless you have special qualification or special skills which are required in Zambia. And if you do that, you are expected to apply to immigration to grant you a permit to authorize you to work. There are some special refugees, for example, you are skilled, you are a doctor, or you are an engineer, or you're a very skilled person, a footballer, and you'd want to use that skill, you can be allowed actually to get a permit and work. Or if you are actually an entrepreneur, you have got resources and you can run business, and I'm sure for now, you can tell me that in Zambia, most of the people who are running entrepreneurship at the level of shops and others are refugees from different countries. Rwandese shop, Burundis and so on. And thank God, those guys are very good at entrepreneurship. Okay? So those are actually granted permit to operate those businesses. but they are not supposed to operate those businesses without an authorized immigration permit. Because ideally, they are only supposed to be here in this country as refugees and kept in refugee camps.
Okay.
Zambia practices what is called refugee camp-based systems. And if you know that in Zambia, we've got about three major refugee camps. We've got Maheba, Mayukayuka, and Kara camp somewhere in Ruapula. So that is where they're expected to be. But because they have some special skills and requirement which makes them become good entrepreneurs, they would go further by showing proof of investment and be allowed to operate businesses which you are seeing everywhere in the country. But there are some certain benchmarks they have to fulfill. Not that every person can just take up a permit and start running a shop. You must meet some certain requirement, and immigration must approve that indeed your investment you have is worth to be given a permit and move out of the camp and operate a business wherever it be.
Now let's move on to immigrants.
Yeah.
What are the considerations that are put in place to grant someone an immigrant status in Zambia?
Thank you.
And can that be also upgraded to a citizenship at a later stage?
Exactly. So first of all, when you come to Zambia as a foreign national, you are governed by a law called immigration because I make an immigrant. But for you to stay in this country, you must have a permit, and that permit to authorize you to stay in the country lawfully. And there are different types of permits which can allow you to stay in the country. You can be in this country as a student, you'll be given a study permit. You can be in this country as an investor, you'll be given what is called investment permit. You can be in this country as an expatriate or somebody with skills, you can be given what is called a work permit. You can be in this country as a visitor, you'll be given what is called a visiting permit. So depending on whatever you want to do in Zambia, you'll be able to be given what is called an immigration permit. And it stipulates you what are the conditions and how you can live in this country and what should be allowed to operate on. Now, you asked the question whether from an immigrant you can qualify to become a citizen. Yes, but there's a process involved. So what is involved is that if you get any of these permits, you eventually have to qualify and get what is called a permanent residence or a residence permit. Okay, depending on whatever permit you came to do. For example, if I have to pick up a work permit, if you're on a work permit, you have to be on that permit for over 10 years. Then after 10 years, you can now get what is called a residence permit. It is at that stage when now you can apply for citizenship. But it's not automatic. You must be on that residence permit for not less than 10 years. So in short, if you come to Zambia as an expatriate with your skills, you can only qualify to become a citizen of this country possibly after 20 years. Because you talk of 10 years being on the work permit, and 10 years being the minimum of being on that residence permit. So it's possible for a migrant to qualify to become a Zambian citizenship, but there's a process which has to be followed. So it's not as easier as people may think, because the process takes a bit of time.
Okay. So what are some of the legal issues that immigrants and refugees face when trying to integrate into the Zambian society? What are some of the legal issues that they face?
Okay. The most obvious thing I see them face is that to meet some legal requirements. I'll tell you that every part of the world, it's so strict when it comes to matters of citizenship, immigration laws. So most of the legal hurdles they face is to meet what the law provides. As I explained to you, that for you to get a citizenship, you must be at least not less than 20 years if you came in as an expatriate. And not only that, you must be able to show that you have lived an exemplary, very good life, not anything connected to criminal-related matters, and so on. So for you to meet the benchmark of being a citizen, it might not be very easy. If it comes to refugees, it even becomes more complicated because you can't automatically qualify to become a Zambian citizenship from being a refugee. That's not possible. First of all, you must make sure that you relinquish the status of being a refugee, because mind you, you came into the country running away from a problem. So if that problem is over, you must be able to go back. But if you want to change from being a refugee, which means you have got to relinquish that status, get back to immigration, and apply for an appropriate permit, meaning that at that stage you get back to zero. So if you came into refugees and be living a refugee for 20 years on a refugee status, because a refugee status, you don't need an immigration permit. That status is enough. But if you now want to switch to become a citizen, meaning that you have to cease to be a refugee apply for any of the immigration appropriate permit, either investment permit, work permit, and any of those, and then start following the whole process of being a migrant. So those are some of difficult legal hurdles which most of these people face, and it can be very complicated for them to get to the position of citizenship. But that doesn't mean that Zambia doesn't want people to become citizens of this country. But generally, issues to do with citizenship is a well-guarded issue everywhere in the world.
Has to be followed.
Yes, the laws have to be followed, and it has to follow to the letter. But most people would want to make a shortcut, and those are things which they get themselves into trouble.
Yeah.
Because anyone who wants to get into shortcut what the law provides, they will have problems. But Immigration Department, Refugee Law, and Refugee Commission for Refugees and Citizenship Office are open, and people are free to go and get some of these issues. And besides, Law Association of Zambia, that's why it's coming up with this program to enable people come and seek some of this proper guidance, and they'll be granted. All lawyers, most of lawyers are trained and they're aware of these legal provisions, and they can guide different citizens, and they make use of some of these followers to understand some of these requirements. But the problem we face with most of our migrants, most of our refugees, they don't want to hear this one. They want to make shortcuts and be misled by the people who may not understand these issues. That's why these programs like this one is able to help people out there to understand some of these things. Our offices are open, and the Immigration Department offices are open, Citizenship office are open, and Commissioner for Refugees office are open. They can consult and they'll properly be guided, other than finding themselves on the wrong side of the law.
Okay. Now, you are still watching The People's Law. Today, we're talking about immigration law. We're talking about citizenship as well as refugee status. So please stay tuned. We're going to be back after this short break. Welcome back, and you are still watching The People's Law, and today we're talking about citizenship and immigration as well as refugee status. And today we have been privileged to be joined by the Law Association of Zambia, and they're helping us understand what the difference is between these three statuses. Now, Counsel, you had mentioned that refugee status is temporal. So what considerations are put in place for children, for example, that have been born to refugee parents in Zambia? And is there a time frame for refugee status, or that depends on the reason for to grant the status in the first place?
Exactly. There's not really any time frame. Yes, refugee status is temporal, but there's no time frame for refugee status per se. What determines refugee status of somebody is what made that person to leave his home country to run into a country such as Zambia. If this person's situation still prevails, he can be in this country for as long as the situation which forced that person to leave their country to come to Zambia is still persists. For example, I'll give you an example of the situation in Somalia. Somalia for quite some time has never been a stable country. And therefore, we may actually have refugees from Somalia for quite some time, because the situation which made those people to leave the country still exists.
Yeah.
So they have to be there in this country for as long as the situation exists. But should they request and feel that, well, as far as they are concerned, there's nothing anymore to fear, they can still go back to and be repatriated back. But that repatriation is not just done at the wish of the refugee. Both the Zambian government, Commissioner for Refugees, as well as UNHCR must be satisfied that indeed the conditions which forced this person to leave his country have now ceased to exist. For example, I'm sure you'll be aware that in this country, we had people from South Africa, from Zimbabwe, from Angola, and all our neighboring countries were actually being housed in this country as refugees. Those from South Africa came in because of the apartheid situation. But now that South Africa is an independent country, apartheid is not much of an issue. Most South Africans have since repatriated and they're back home. And many other countries, such as in Angola, there was a war between Savimbi and the government. Now that thing is over. Most of people have gone back. So it's a temporal situation, but it depends on the situation. But you ask the question whether a child born in Zambia from a refugee, what does it become to him? As I said, that being born in this country does not automatically make you become a citizen.
No.
If you were born from a refugee, automatically you also become a refugee. But if the situation which made your parents leave the country normalizes. The question also would be that, suppose your parents die whilst in this country.
Yes.
What happens to you?
Yes.
Yes, you can continue to become a refugee in this country. But if at a certain given time, the situation which made your parents leave the country has normalized, you can actually be repatriated back to your country and continue being a citizen of that country. But all in all, the government of Zambia, UNHCR, and even possibly the country where you come from, they'll always be working towards peace and resolving whatever forced people to leave these countries so that people don't have to move everywhere. And that is why people meet at a UN level, people meet at OAU level, people meet at SADC level to try and question or quench some of these problems which brings confusion to make people move from one country to the other. That's the reason some of these organizations do operate. Yes.
So, Council, now you had mentioned that Zambia has been a home to a lot of refugees from different countries for different reasons.
Yeah.
But how does Zambia now balance its hospitality with national security and the limited resources that we have?
Of course, that's the most difficult issue which the country has always faced since independence. But as you know, Zambia, we're a very hospitable nation, and natural citizens of Zambia are known to be very friendly. So we have tried our level best to balance our situation from the limited resources we have to accommodate people coming from different parts of the world, running out from different situations. It has been a very costly and difficult task for the government, but above all, we have also been helped by many cooperating partners. And on topping the list is the UNHCR, which is not the High Commissioner for Refugees, which goes around the world and solicits for help from different cooperating partners to support Zambia in its quest to try and take care of the huge numbers of refugees which normally come to our country to take care of our situation. But even the little resources we have tried to share what we have with our colleagues who come from different countries for different reasons.
Yeah.
But all what we request and indeed ask is that whilst you are in this country, you are expected to follow our laws.
Yes.
And by ensuring that you abide by the laws which govern this country. Any form of illegal activities being conducted by migrants or refugees would definitely be made by the law. And those people we feel that cannot meet the requirements of the law is that they will actually be flushed out of this country. They will actually be deported. So it is incumbent upon our migrants, the foreign nationals who come to this country, as well as refugees, to ensure that whilst they are in this country, they follow the laws as stipulated in our country and abide by what is expected from them.
So we have talked about refugee status and how someone can come to attain that status. We've talked about how Zambian citizenship is awarded, which is by blood.
Yes.
Now, what are the considerations put in place, for example, if someone marries a Zambian? What is the process that's involved there? Do they automatically qualify to be a Zambian citizen? What happens in that kind of situation?
Thanks very much. First of all, marrying a Zambian is not prohibited. Any person can marry a Zambian or can get married. The Zambian woman can get married to a foreign man. The law allows that. But that does not automatically make you that you are going to get a Zambian citizenship. No. There's a procedure required. Once you get married to a Zambian citizen, you apply what is called the spouse permit. The spouse permit allows you to be in the country. First, to give a spouse permit, I think that's about 2 years. After 2 years, the spouse permit will actually be renewed. After people have checked and confirmed that indeed this is a good marriage and everything is okay, they will extend it for another 3 years to make it 5 years. So if you've been on a spouse permit for about 5 years, then you qualify for what is called permanent residence. And being on permanent residence now is a further way of now getting into some citizenship. Though I'm not too sure if the years have been reduced. If you're on a permanent resident and being married to a Zambian, maybe the years are even slightly lower. If I'm to check my law properly, it could be about 5 years or so on permanent residence. Then you can apply for Zambian citizenship by registration. So even that is not automatic. But the children born from these two couples, Zambian and a foreign nation, those have an automatic entry. They become a citizen of Zambia because one of the parents is a Zambian. But you, the husband or a wife, does not automatically become a Zambian because of getting married to a Zambian.
To a Zambian.
No.
Okay.
You have to follow some certain legal requirement, like getting a spouse permit, permanent residence, and then apply for Zambian citizenship by registration.
Okay. So you're still watching The People's Law. Today we're talking about citizenship, we're talking about immigration laws. And right now we're going to go to the streets and find out what you, the public, know about these laws and how you understand them. We'll be back shortly. If, say, for example, someone is visiting Zambia or a couple is visiting Zambia and the woman is pregnant, and then they end up having that child here in Zambia, is that child now a citizen of Zambia, in your opinion?
According to my own opinion, that child cannot be a citizen of Zambia.
Do you mind telling us why?
The reason I've said that child cannot be a citizen of Zambia because those people are from another country and the child holds the citizenship of the both parents. That's what I can say.
Muntu monga imwe so mukaenda kutandala mwendo tanda country kina ngolo ku Malawi olo ku Zimbabwe and then mwina mimba. Then mwaba mwabalira kuja. Ujamaa anazankala citizen wa Malawi olo zankala citizen wa Zambia.
Azankala citizen wa Zambia. Kani kuja naenda tabe kutandala kwatu ni ku Zambia.
According kuli imwe Zambian citizen ni ndani. Chechimangisa kutumika matu uyu muntu Mzambia ni chichani.
Okay, monga kuli what I can say. Zambian citizen is somebody who is born in Zambia, you see, who is born in Zambia, and that person or their parents, they are both from here. Because I can't say that and in a Zambian citizen, my parents wangu in another country.
If a foreigner has come in this country, what do you think qualifies them? What can they do to qualify to be a Zambian citizen?
Out of education, I think I've got the fact that someone's supposed to live in Zambia for at least 10 years for them to qualify for citizenship.
Welcome back. We're still talking citizenship and immigration law, and we are still with a representative from the Law Association of Zambia, Council Greenwell. Now, Council, looking at the opinions from the public, what do you think is the importance for people to actually understand the law that governs citizenship, immigration, and refugee status?
Thanks very much. Indeed, it's very interesting to hear what people have been saying, and it's very clear to know that people don't know much about these issues.
Yes.
It's very important for people to understand the law. And what makes people actually not to abide by the law is because they have very little knowledge,
yes,
or they don't completely understand it.
Yes.
And therefore, when we come in to try and explain such issues, it helps the citizens to abide by the law as they'll be able to speak from an informed point of view. So we call upon people to come to the Law Association of Zambia or visit any of the lawyers. Don't be scared of the lawyers. Some of the lawyers do these things on pro bono for free. We have the mandate as lawyers, as the Law Association of Zambia, to help the citizenship understand the law. If you remember when I explained one of the mandates of the Law Association of Zambia is to make the citizens understand the law, make it more simpler. So come up in open and come and learn some of these issues. To the migrants, the foreign nationals, don't be scared of the Law Association of Zambia. Don't be scared of the government institutions and ask some of these issues. For the refugees, you are also most welcome to come up to the Law Association of Zambia, visit any of the lawyers, and ask some of these issues which are very pertinent and be able to understand what the law provides. And we are free even to open up some of these series so that we'll be able to discuss in these details.
Absolutely.
So what I understand is that from the views of the members of the public, it is very clear that there's very little knowledge.
Absolutely.
And because of that little knowledge brings up a lot of fights and confusion, and sometimes the worst case scenario is xenophobic business of trying to attack foreigners as if they are not wanted and so on. And I've seen sometimes in the compounds people start shouting at refugees, trying to rob their shops, claiming these people. No, these people are here because they've been authorized by the government, they've been given a certain status. If you have any problems with any of these foreign nationals and if they don't have the one, the best you need to do is to report to the rest of authorities. But don't take the law in your own hands by looting their shops, harassing them, because at the end of the day, you'll be found on the wrong side of the law. Zambians are known to be very hospitable people, very accommodating. Since time immemorial, we have accommodated different people from different countries. And therefore, we must make sure that the last appeal for us want to make is on the issues of There's this trend rising against Zambians, especially our colleagues who are involved, by Zambians against the people who are involved in the entrepreneurship, running businesses. There's one thing we should admire about our colleagues is that they know entrepreneurship business. What we need to go through is to try and understand how are you people managing these things? Because most of us are failing.
Try and learn.
Try and learn than to attack and start stealing from them. These people have come with the skills. Let us learn how our colleagues are doing it and take it up from there. So we are calling upon Zambians to come up. We are calling upon migrant and foreigners to come and understand these issues, learn from the Law Association of Zambians, learn from the lawyers, and also even refugees. Don't be scared of our offices. We are here to provide a service, and we shall be available whenever need arises.
Okay. So, Councillor Greenwell, any last remarks to our audience on what they need to know about being a citizen, being a refugee, and an immigrant in this country?
Thanks very much. I'm still calling upon any person who would want to know more about these issues. First of all, these programs are being put to you by the Law Association of Zambia, and you are free to visit any of the law firms, any of the lawyers, or any of these departments which are responsible for these institutions. You have got the Immigration Department, which deals with migrants. You have got the Citizenship Office, which deals with matters of citizenship. You have got Commission of Refugees, which deals with matters of refugees. Where you are not too clear, go and ask. And most of these institutions actually have opened up their websites where they're sharing most of these rules and regulations. If you're informed, you will not break the law. And make sure that once you get informed, follow what that means. And where you know that somebody is not following the law, you are free to report these people to the necessary institutions for appropriate action. That is what I would guide and advise the citizenship to take up this matter and help the country to be peaceful and well secured.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Greenwell, for coming. We appreciate the insight, and we're looking forward to having you back on the show.
Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure being on this program, and hope people have learned one or two issues and you will be available when a need arises to come and help the nation on such matters. Thank you.
Now, echoing the words of Councillor Greenwell, when you know the law, you will not break it. And this is why we are here as the People's Law Program, to help you understand the laws of this country and what your responsibilities are. Today, we've been discussing immigration and citizenship in Zambia, and we've been accompanied by the Law Association of Zambia, as we will be in the episodes that are coming in the following weeks. So be sure to join us on the next episode, and don't miss any single episode because there's so much to learn. But we also want to hear from you. If you have any comments, any questions, please leave your comments on our socials on Facebook, on YouTube, and all our other platforms. Thank you so much for joining us, and see you on the next one.